Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Ready to go deep on another fascinating interview.
Always. What do we have today?
This one features Jeff Bezos and was conducted by Andrew Ross Sorkin from the New York Times Events YouTube channel.
Oh, I saw that one. It covers a lot of ground.
It does. We had a ton of requests from listeners to take a closer look. Everything from the Washington Post to Blue Origin is in there.
Well, let's dive in then. Where should we start?
His views on media trust are particularly interesting, especially considering he owns both Amazon and the Washington Post.
Yeah, that's a bit of a tricky situation, isn't it?
It is. He actually acknowledges the inherent conflict of interest. He even says he's probably not the ideal owner from that perspective.
Makes sense. It's hard to claim neutrality when you've got such massive business interests potentially at stake.
But he argues that his financial resources allow him to be a doting parent to the Post.
A doting parent? How so?
He believes it gives the Post the independence it needs to operate without being beholden to any particular interest.
Okay, I see his point. But financial independence doesn't automatically equal journalistic integrity.
That's true. And his critics, like Marty Baron and David Remnick, really hammered that point home.
What were their arguments?
Well, this interview took place right after the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And remember, Bezos chose not to have the Post endorse a presidential candidate.
Yeah. He claimed it was about bolstering credibility by appearing impartial.
Right. But those critics argued that it actually eroded trust. It looked like the Post was shying away from taking a stand.
So it backfired.
Kinda. It definitely had an impact. 250,000 people canceled their subscriptions because of it.
Wow. That's a lot of people.
It really highlights how challenging it is for media organizations to maintain trust in our current environment.
It's a tough landscape to navigate. You can't please everyone.
For sure. And speaking of a polarized landscape, his comments on then-President Trump's regulatory agenda are pretty telling.
I remember that. It's surprising to hear him express optimism about Trump's potential for reducing regulation.
It is, especially considering their differences on other issues.
Right. But this aligns with Bezos's broader belief in the need for a growth orientation to address economic challenges, like the national debt.
He sees excessive regulation as a hindrance to economic growth.
Makes sense. He believes that a more streamlined regulatory environment would lead to more innovation and entrepreneurship.
Exactly. The classic pro-business stance. A rising tide lifts all boats and all that.
So he's willing to work with anyone, even someone he might disagree with, if it means achieving that goal.
He even says, if I can help him do that, I'm going to help him. Talking about Trump.
It's a pragmatic approach.
And of course, we can't talk about Bezos without mentioning Elon Musk.
True. The space race rivalry is a big part of the story.
Sorkin even asks if he's concerned about Musk's close relationship with Trump and whether that could put competitors like Blue Origin at a disadvantage.
What did he say?
Interestingly, he downplayed any concerns. He basically takes Musk at his word that he wouldn't use political influence for personal gain.
Quite a bit of trust there.
He even suggests that Trump might be evolving as a leader, maybe becoming more measured during his potential second term.
Well, that's a whole other discussion.
It is. But let's shift gears a bit. I was really struck by his description of the overview effect.
Oh, yeah. That's fascinating. Have you ever felt anything similar?
Not quite on that scale, but it reminded me of looking out the window of an airplane and suddenly feeling this sense of awe at the vastness of the world below.
It makes you feel small, right?
Yeah, but also connected. It gives you this new perspective on Earth.
It's like a psychological shift. Astronauts who've experienced it talk about a newfound awareness of our planet's fragility.
He even quotes Jim Lovell, the Apollo 13 astronaut, who said, "You don't go to heaven when you die, you go to heaven when you're born."
Wow, that's beautiful.
It really captures that awe-inspiring experience.
It makes you wonder if everyone experienced this, if we treat Earth differently.
Right. It changes your perspective.
For sure.
He also talks about how his family reacted on the morning of his own space flight.
Oh, what was their response?
They were terrified, understandably so. Even for someone like Bezos, who had meticulously planned and prepared, there's inherent risk in space travel.
Right, it makes it real.
And he says he found a strange comfort in their fear.
Comfort.
Yeah, he saw it as a reflection of their love and concern for him.
That's sweet.
It's a really touching insight into his personal life.
Yeah, it humanizes him. Reminds us he's not just this larger-than-life business titan. He's also a son, a brother, a human being.
Exactly. And it seems like this experience solidified his commitment to Blue Origin and his vision for humanity's future beyond Earth.
Which is
It's not just about space tourism for him. He talks about moving polluting industries off Earth to preserve the planet.
that's ambitious.
He sees it as a matter of survival, really.
Yeah.
He talks about eventually using the moon as a stepping stone
A stepping stone for what?
for further exploration and development.
It's a bold vision, that's for sure.
It is. And it contrasts with Elon Musk's vision, which focuses more on establishing a self-sustaining colony on Mars as an escape hatch.
So Bezos sees space as an extension of Earth.
Right. A way to preserve our home planet while still expanding our reach.
Interesting.
He makes some compelling arguments, too, like the moon's lower gravity makes it much easier to launch spacecraft from there.
Yeah.
Reduces the cost and energy required.
Oh, that makes sense.
He also highlights the valuable resources on the moon. Water ice, for example.
Which can be used for.
Rocket fuel.
Mm.
And to support future settlements.
It's all pretty sci-fi.
It is. But he's deadly serious about it. There's this anecdote where Dave Limp, who's now the CEO of Blue Origin, asked Bezos point blank, is this a hobby or a business?
What did he say?
It's a business. And then he goes even further and says he believes Blue Origin will eventually become the best business he's ever been involved in.
Even better than Amazon.
That's what he claims.
That's a lot of confidence.
It is, especially considering the scale of the undertaking and the risks involved. But remember, this is the same guy who built Amazon from a tiny online bookstore into a global giant.
So he's done it before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy. Sorkin even brings up the famous anecdote about Tom Brokaw asking Bezos if he could spell profit during Amazon's early unprofitable years.
Ouch. But look at Amazon now.
Bezos persevered. And he credits his success to, well,
What does he say?
he attributes it to actively trying to counteract a common human tendency
Which is?
to overestimate risk and underestimate opportunity.
Make you think.
It does. He believes that thinking small becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, while embracing bold ideas, even risky ones, is essential for achieving groundbreaking results.
Makes sense. So risk aversion can actually hold you back.
That's his argument. And this seems to be at the heart of Amazon's success, a culture that encourages risk-taking and challenges the status quo.
Interesting. So what does this risk-taking culture look like in practice?
Well, his approach to leadership is pretty unconventional. He's a big fan of what he calls messy meetings.
Messy meetings. Sounds interesting.
They're meetings where he actively encourages dissenting opinions.
Really? That goes against the grain of most corporate cultures.
It does. Typically, it's all about consensus and presenting polished ideas.
Trying to avoid any conflict.
Yeah, but Bezos believes the best ideas often emerge from robust debate. You have to be willing to challenge assumptions.
So it's about seeking truth, even if it gets a little messy.
Exactly. He doesn't want people trying to please him or seeking his approval. He wants them to focus on finding the best solution, regardless of who came up with it.
I like that approach.
He even practices what he calls a go-last approach in meetings.
Go last. What does that mean?
He intentionally lets the most junior person in the room speak first.
That's fascinating. Why does he do that?
It prevents senior members from influencing the discussion and potentially stifling dissenting viewpoints.
Smart. It levels the playing field a bit.
Exactly. It creates a more open exchange of ideas. And it shows he values everyone's input, regardless of their position.
It's refreshing to see a leader who's not afraid to challenge the status quo and encourage different perspectives.
It is. And it doesn't stop there. He even talks about the importance of being comfortable expressing emotions like fear in a professional setting.
Wow, that's really going against the traditional image of a stoic leader.
Right. It's about acknowledging that we're all human, even the most successful leaders. And that expressing our emotions, even the uncomfortable ones, can actually lead to more authentic connections and more productive discussions.
I can see how that would build trust and encourage more open communication within a team.
Exactly. But even with his unconventional approach, he admits that stepping down as CEO of Amazon wasn't easy.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. It's like his baby.
He compares it to sending a child off to college, a mix of pride and anxiety.
You put so much of yourself into building something like Amazon. Letting go must be tough.
But he emphasizes that he hasn't completely abandoned ship.
He's still involved.
He's still deeply invested in Amazon's success. He just shifted his focus to AI applications.
Interesting. So what's he working on now?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Amazon recently announced its own large language model, Nova.
Nova, like a competitor to ChatGPT.
Exactly. It puts Amazon firmly in the race with other tech giants like Google and OpenAI.
So Amazon is going all in on AI.
They are. And Bezos is confident that Nova is a game changer.
How so?
He describes it as a world-class foundation model, highlighting its strong performance and cost-effectiveness.
Okay, so it's a powerful AI system that's also affordable.
But he goes beyond just praising its capabilities. He gives this glimpse into how he sees AI models evolving in the future.
What does he predict?
He thinks they'll become increasingly specialized, each tailored to excel in specific tasks.
So instead of having one generic AI that tries to do everything, we'll have a bunch of specialized AIs that are experts in their specific domains.
That's his vision. It implies a future where we interact with a diverse ecosystem of AI models, each designed to address a particular need or solve a specific problem.
That's fascinating.
It is. And it raises some big questions about access and control. Who will have access to these specialized AI models?
Will they be available to everyone, or will they be concentrated in the hands of a few powerful corporations?
Exactly. It's something to think about.
It is. But it's clear that Bezos is incredibly excited about the potential of AI to solve some of humanity's most pressing problems. But he also recognizes the importance of addressing the potential risks. It's a balancing act, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It will. So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, but there's still much more to explore in this fascinating interview.
There is. We'll delve into those topics and more in the next part of our deep dive. Okay, so picking up where we left off, one thing that really stood out to me was Bezos' take on the national debt.
Yeah, his whole growth orientation concept.
Exactly. It's not the typical cut spending approach you hear from a lot of folks.
You'd think someone with his financial background would be all about austerity.
Yeah, right. But he argues that just focusing on reducing the debt might be short-sighted.
Instead of shrinking the debt directly, he suggests we should be focusing on growing the economy at a faster rate.
It's like, instead of making a smaller pie, let's just bake a bigger one.
Exactly. So we can manage the debt without resorting to those austerity measures that could stifle innovation and economic progress.
He's basically advocating for a mindset shift, moving away from that scarcity mentality.
Right. It's about embracing a more abundant, growth-oriented perspective.
And he points to the United States' history of entrepreneurial success as proof that it works.
He believes we have the potential to achieve even more economic growth.
And he highlights the importance of the American risk capital system. It's that willingness to invest in new ideas that drives innovation and expansion.
He's making a case for a dynamic market economy where risk-taking is encouraged.
But he also cautions against excessive regulation. All that red tape can be a real drag on businesses.
He uses some interesting examples, like the difficulties faced by companies trying to build infrastructure, things like bridges and solar fields.
Just getting bogged down in bureaucracy.
Yeah, it's a reminder that government policies have a huge impact, even in a free market. Bezos believes we need a more streamlined approach to regulation that fosters innovation.
Okay, so we've talked about his economic views, but now let's jump to something totally different. His vision for space exploration.
His idea of moving polluting industries off Earth is wild.
It is. It's sparked a lot of debate.
So what's his thinking there?
Well, he sees it as a way to protect Earth's beauty and natural resources.
But we'd still be polluting, just somewhere else.
Right. But his argument is that by relocating heavy industries to space, we can essentially zone Earth for residential and light industrial use.
So Earth becomes this pristine paradise.
That's the idea.
I mean, it's a compelling vision, but it raises a ton of questions.
Oh, absolutely. Is it even technologically feasible? What about the cost? And what about the ethical implications of exporting our pollution?
It's like we're just shifting the problem, not solving it.
Right. But Bezos seems to believe that human ingenuity can overcome these challenges. He argues that we won't willingly destroy our planet.
He's got this almost idealistic view of humanity's relationship with nature.
Right. He even uses the example of ancient pottery to illustrate this point.
Pottery.
He points out that even in our earliest days, we were creating objects that were both functional and beautiful.
So it's this inherent appreciation for aesthetics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He believes that desire for beauty will ultimately drive us to find solutions that preserve Earth's natural splendor.
It's an optimistic perspective, that's for sure.
And one that assumes we're capable of thinking long-term.
Which, let's face it, isn't always humanity's strong suit.
True. But even if we accept that premise, it's still a massive undertaking.
Oh, absolutely. It would be a multi-generational project. And it would require a level of global cooperation that, frankly, we haven't seen before.
That's the challenge, isn't it? But you have to admire his ambition.
I do. He's not afraid to dream big. And his commitment is clear. He's pouring billions into Blue Origin
And he sees the moon as this crucial stepping stone.
because of the lower gravity,
Partly, it makes launching spacecraft much easier and cheaper. He also highlights the abundance of resources there, like water ice.
which could be used for rocket fuel and to support lunar settlements.
Right. It all sounds incredibly futuristic.
It does. But for Bezos, it's not just a fantasy. He sees it as an inevitability.
And when Dave Limp, who's now the CEO of Blue Origin, interviewed for the job, he asked Bezos directly, is this a hobby or a business?
And Bezos didn't hesitate. He said, it's a business. And then he went even further and said he believed Blue Origin would become the best business he'd ever been involved in.
Even bigger than Amazon.
That's his prediction. Now, whether that comes true, who knows? But it shows his level of conviction.
It's remarkable. It takes a lot of confidence to make that kind of statement, especially in such a risky and unproven industry.
But Bezos has never been one to shy away from risk.
Yeah.
Look at Amazon's early days. It was years of losses before they turned a profit.
And everyone thought he was crazy.
Exactly. But he persevered. And his success, he says, is due to a conscious effort to combat a common human flaw,
Which is?
overestimating risk and underestimating opportunity.
So we tend to play it safe, even when boldness is what's called for.
Right. And he believes that embracing bold ideas, even risky ones, is essential for achieving those truly groundbreaking results.
It's a reminder to not let fear hold us back. But it's not just about individual risk-taking, is it? Bezos has cultivated this whole culture of risk-taking and challenging the status quo at Amazon.
And that culture manifests in some pretty unconventional ways, like his approach to meetings,
Oh, right, his messy meeting.
where he actively encourages people to disagree with him.
That's wild. In most companies, people are terrified to challenge the boss.
But Bezos wants to hear those dissenting opinions. He believes the best ideas come from robust debate.
So it's about seeking truth, even if it gets a little uncomfortable.
Exactly. He wants people to focus on finding the best solution, not on trying to please him.
And his go last approach is another example. He lets the most junior person in the room speak first to prevent senior members from influencing the discussion.
It's about creating a more level playing field and encouraging everyone to share their ideas, regardless of their position.
It's pretty radical, but I like it. It shows a genuine commitment to hearing diverse perspectives.
And it ties into his belief in the importance of vulnerability. He even talks about being comfortable expressing emotions like fear in a professional setting.
That's so counter to the traditional image of the stoic, emotionless leader, but I think it's incredibly powerful.
It's about recognizing that we're all human, and that acknowledging our emotions, even the uncomfortable ones, can actually lead to stronger connections and more productive discussions.
It builds trust and encourages more authentic communication. But even with this unconventional approach to leadership, stepping down as CEO of Amazon wasn't easy for him.
He compares it to sending a child off to college.
Yeah.
That feeling of pride, but also anxiety, as something you've nurtured for so long, becomes independent.
Yeah, I can imagine. He poured so much of himself into building Amazon, it must be tough to let go.
But he emphasizes that he's not completely out of the picture. He's still deeply invested in Amazon's success. He's just shifted his focus to AI applications.
Ah, yes. And this is where things get really exciting. Amazon recently unveiled its own large language model, Nova.
A direct competitor to ChatGPT.
Exactly. It puts Amazon right in the thick of the AI race.
And Bezos believes Nova has the potential to be a game changer. He describes it as a world-class foundation model, highlighting its performance and affordability.
So it's powerful and accessible. A good combination.
But he goes beyond just praising its capabilities. He offers this fascinating glimpse into how he sees AI evolving in the future. He predicts that AI models will become increasingly specialized, each tailored to excel in specific tasks.
So instead of one AI trying to do it all, we'll have a whole ecosystem of specialized AIs.
Right. Imagine having an AI that's an expert in medical diagnosis, another that's a whiz at financial modeling, and yet another that can write compelling marketing copy.
It's like having an army of specialized assistants at your disposal.
Exactly. It has the potential to revolutionize so many industries.
But it also raises some important questions.
Like, who will have access to these specialized AI models? Will it be a democratizing force, or will it further concentrate power in the hands of a few?
It's something we need to think about carefully as this technology continues to develop. But regardless of how it plays out, it's clear that Bezos sees AI as this incredibly transformative force, with the potential to both solve some of humanity's biggest problems and create a whole new world of possibilities.
And that's a good segue into our next topic. His philanthropic work. He's not just focused on making money, he's also trying to make a difference.
His $10 billion commitment to the Bezos Earth Fund is a perfect
Well,
example.
it's one of the largest philanthropic commitments ever made. And it shows he's not just paying lip service to climate change.
Right. It's a serious investment in finding solutions. It
Yeah.
is. And it's not just about throwing money at the problem. The Bezos Earth Fund is taking a very strategic approach.
They're using data to guide their decisions, focusing on initiatives with the biggest potential for impact.
So they're supporting scientists, activists, and organizations working on things like renewable energy and conservation,
And they're also tackling the issue of climate justice,
recognizing that marginalized communities often bear the brunt of climate change.
even though they've contributed the least to the problem.
Exactly. So it's about addressing those inequalities and ensuring a just transition to a more sustainable future.
And Bezos isn't just writing checks. He's also using his platform to advocate for change,
He's been pretty vocal about the need for collective action on climate change.
encouraging individuals, businesses, and governments to step up.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about another area where Bezos is making a big impact: education.
He's particularly passionate about early childhood education.
He sees those early years as critical for development, laying the groundwork for future success.
It's about nurturing that potential, giving everyone the tools they need to thrive.
And he's also a big proponent of STEM education.
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yep. He sees those fields as essential for driving innovation and progress.
And again, he's putting his money where his mouth is, supporting scholarships, mentoring programs, and organizations that provide educational resources to underserved communities,
It's all about expanding access to opportunity.
and leveling the playing field. Education is such a powerful tool for social and economic mobility.
Absolutely. Okay, ready to dive into something a little more futuristic?
Hit me.
Artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah, Bezos is fascinated by AI. He sees it as this transformative force that's going to touch every aspect of our lives.
He describes it as this horizontal enabling layer,
A horizontal enabling layer,
meaning it's going to impact everything we do.
kind of like electricity.
Exactly. He believes AI has the potential to solve some of humanity's biggest problems.
Things like climate change and disease.
But he's also realistic about the potential risks,
He's talked about the dangers of AI being misused.
especially in things like autonomous weapons systems.
It's a sobering thought.
It is. It's a reminder that we need to be very thoughtful about how we develop and deploy this technology.
We can't just focus on the benefits and ignore the potential downsides.
Exactly. It's a balancing act. And it requires a broader conversation about the ethical implications of AI.
One that involves not just technologists, but also ethicists, policymakers, and the public.
Right. It's a conversation we need to have now, before it's too late.
Mm.
But on a more optimistic note, Bezos also sees AI as this incredible tool for improving our lives in so many ways.
He believes AI will automate a lot of tasks that are currently done by humans.
Which could lead to huge gains in efficiency and productivity.
But he's not predicting a robot takeover.
No, he thinks AI will create new opportunities too, especially in fields that require creativity and critical thinking.
The things that are uniquely human.
Right. So it's not about AI replacing humans. It's about AI augmenting human capabilities.
Working together to achieve more than we could alone.
And it's not just about work. He sees AI personalizing our experiences.
From shopping to entertainment.
AI could tailor things to our individual preferences.
That's pretty cool.
It is. But there are concerns too.
Privacy, data security, the potential for bias.
All valid concerns. It's important to be aware of those as we embrace this new technology.
But speaking of embracing new technology, let's talk about Bezos' passion for space exploration.
Blue Origin. This is where his long-term thinking really shines.
He sees it as more than just space tourism. It's about securing humanity's future.
He's got this belief that Earth is a finite resource.
And that we need to expand beyond our planetary boundaries.
Exactly. He envisions a future with millions of people living and working in space.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does. But for Bezos, it's a very real possibility. And a necessary one.
But it raises some pretty big questions.
Oh, for sure. The feasibility, the cost, The ethical implications of colonizing other planets?
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. But whether you agree with his vision or not, you have to admire his ambition and his willingness to push boundaries.
He's definitely not afraid to think big. And it's not just about the technical challenges. He also talks about the importance of inspiration.
He wants to inspire the next generation of scientists, engineers, and explorers.
To push the boundaries of human knowledge and to keep that spirit of discovery alive.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Jeff Bezos, it's clear that he's a complex and driven individual.
He's a visionary leader, a bold entrepreneur, a passionate philanthropist, and a tireless advocate for progress.
And his story offers valuable lessons for all of us.
About the power of long-term thinking, the importance of innovation, and the need to embrace risk and failure as part of the journey.
It's a reminder that we all have the potential to make a difference, to leave our mark on the world.
So as you go about your day, think about what seemingly impossible dream you might dare to chase. What bold idea might you embrace? What positive change might you create, no matter how small?
Because it's those small acts of courage, of innovation, of kindness that can ultimately add up to something truly extraordinary.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored the fascinating world of Jeff Bezos.